I quite like Cube from 1997, directed by Vincenzo Natali. I believe that the film comes under criticism for being poorly performed, not a superlative horror film. There weren't a substantial number in the 90s, it is claimed, of being overrated by an overenthusiastic fan base. The uniqueness and audacity of Cube is to be admired, although in one's mind after viewing it, Cube can be relegated to the status of a thrilling yet ultimately non-revelatory TV film in the few days or weeks or month afterward. Even if it is always, whenever you view it with a few years of space, thoroughly engrossing and an experience. Cube builds up a lot of mood and atmosphere for a film which is ultimately about who will live to the end of the story. Stellar production design, imaginative cinematographic ethos, fluid and impressive understanding of space, grand sets, better performances than it might be critiqued for. Esri Dax, always good to see Nicole DeBoer. A genuinely unique visual aesthetic in the ocean of the 20th century's genre cinema, from Melis to The Matrix, and a film which makes you wonder what you would do if you were in the scenario. I wouldn't take Cube for granted, although I wouldn't be in any rush to name it one of the most essential films of the 1990s. In any hypothetical book on 1990s cinema, it couldn't hurt to discuss Cube as an example of an ambitious, lesser budgeted horror thriller sci-fi work which had a commercial impact, disguised its budget fairly effectively, and introduced a genuinely unique gimmick to the silver screen, and one which arguably was more influential on an uglier, less impressive series of torture or trap-oriented affairs, which, whilst it revived the horror genre in the mainstream for a while, it also brutally degraded it. Found footage was accused of ruining horror, at least REC eventually came by. Post-Saw or Hostel torture trash did not influence the commendable Martyrs of 2008, I don't assume so. Plus, the torture fad misunderstands the expressionist potential of film violence in lieu of simulated, allegedly ethical pseudo-snuff, but let's pause that tangent now. AOD endorses Cube, wants to believe in Hypercube, is less inclined to Cube Zero, but wishes it rather well. There is no ill feeling toward it either. This trilogy is an endearing novelty of the early to mid, even late 2000s, when the internet and film discussion on it was relegated to hobbyists and obsessives, not the swaths of younger wannabe cultured tastemakers, all attempting to pick up and remake the existing canons, basically when the internet in general was for or occupied by the enthusiasts and not the place where the conformist flock went to just posture and prance, when the internet was essentially quite tangibly better. Cinema is not dead, yet, as of last year. It might be slightly or moderately injured, but the internet decided to gravitate toward a different crowd, and it can feel disappointing, and more disappointing, when one realizes that the internet's aligning with your own optimistic ideals was just a temporary adolescent phase of itself, predictably. What does this have to do with 1997's Cube? Cube isn't made feeling conscious of how people will respond on social media, just people in a cinema, and the kind of people who will view it at that. Now, so many people want to be a part of the projected discourse that they will share an opinion on anything, and so a current take on the concept of Cube would attempt to tick all of the boxes, feel rather predictable and safe, and truly enchant and tantalize no one. That is a part of the problem with films today, and a prospective solution might be for filmmakers to impress themselves. If you can work at dismantling your own insecurities and please yourself after much trials and error, perhaps you would please or excite others with your work as well. Maybe. Cube is cool, very violent though, be careful with it if you're nervous about manner of presentation. In terms of 1997 releases, Cube was not superior to the finest that world cinema had to offer. Kawase's Mono Suzaku, a shaking, monumental work. Kellerman's Frost, impactful saga. Oldman's Nil by Mouth, even worth considering here. Bartus the House, extraordinary picture. Even if genre cinema, one might point to Verhoeven's Starship Troopers as gratifying straight entertainment and pleasing pulp, even if the supposed artistic ideals are to be scoffed at for not being cosmopolitan left or left-wing enough. But the only people who feel the need to finger-wag about a monster film to feel left-wing are the cosmopolitan left, rather than the left-wing who are too busy being, well, left-wing to worry about silly matters such as that. Is Cube left-wing? Yeah, why not? Maybe it has a libertarian streak, or maybe an idiosyncratic example of Canadian weird fiction, Cronenberg to Villeneuve's enemy with many precedents before and afterwards, certainly. Cube is at least worth watching, more so than this upload about it. If you don't like plot holes, avoid Cube. Not because it has plot holes, but because you can't enjoy things or create anything meaningful either. If you don't like graphic violence, avoid Cube. Otherwise, Cube's fine. Leave it alone. It's charismatic.